If Hogan was perfect for 80s patriotism, this new wave of unmitigated, soulless, bloody handed corporate power was perfect for Vince McMahon. Backing up to 82, Vince and Titan Sports had acquired Capital Wrestling Corporation, the parent company of WWF, from Vince Sr. and, the old ownership group. At the time, WWF was just an institution that had barely changed in over a decade, and why would it? It worked. Champions like Buddy Rogers, Bruno Sammartino, superstar Billy Graham had sustained the Fed for years. WWF was just a nice, kind of innocent mom and pop territory. They ran MSG, not like the Toledo Rec Center or whatever, but it is important to note they were playing nice. Capital WWF rejoined NWA in 71, so they kind of did their part in this unwritten agreement between promoters across the country to stay in their lanes, protect their regions, avoid stepping on toes. TV was local, stars were regional. It was goddamn communism. But when Vince K took over, that was all done.
Well, and also too with this is Vince McMahon Sr. and a lot of his partners and the people that thought they were going to take over. They're like, why would I expand? I have New York. I have Philadelphia. I have Boston. I'm good, man. You want Chicago and then fight to get thousands of people in a civic center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa? Have fun, Vern. Go do your thing. Florida. You're putting people in armories, 2,000 people in an armory, and you got to make sure you get all 2,000 of those people. Cool. Great. Do your thing. Jim Crockett Promotions. You're running Shelby, North Carolina and Spartanburg, South Carolina. Have fun. Go ahead. Do your thing. And whatever you do on the West Coast, whatever you do in Texas, that's fine. Have Dallas. Dallas ain't quite what it is, but it's going to be. But go have your fun. We've got Philadelphia. We have New York. We have Boston. We're content. And that's another thing that you need to think about with the expansion. Vince could have just ran that and ran it, and it would have been fine. And he would have been a millionaire. And the fact that he had fulfilled his obligation that was asked by his father to buy out the partners, and then him getting the territory, he could have ran New York and ended up being a millionaire very easily, living a comfortable life, being well respected. But no, he was fucking greedy.
So when the reins were officially handed over to Vince Jr., one of the first things he did was leave NWA in 1983. That should have warned everyone that storms are coming. Vince began buying up TV markets that, quote unquote, weren't WWF's. And one of the biggest partnerships he ended up with, and longest partnerships he ended up with, was the USA Network taking over their Sunday morning slot that belonged to Southwest Championship Wrestling.
And also a big thing that he was doing was a lot of these stations, because of FCC regulations, they had to put on a certain amount of local entertainment. That's like you have the news, and that's why sometimes you have local talk shows and then have a local news magazine. And obviously production costs for producing a television show locally, not every place had the ability to do that. But when you had a local wrestling territory, i.e. Memphis, they would be like, hey, we'll set up a ring in a TV studio every Saturday morning, and you guys just have cameras and we'll promote our wrestling shows. They're basically giving the TV studio and the TV time for free. And then the promoters are using it as a way to get people out to the wrestling shows. And that's how it kind of operated. And then the local stations were fulfilling their FCC requirement to produce a certain amount of hours of local television. They have these people that are very happy to help them produce this show. It costs very little. You just have to have cameramen come in and turn the lights on in a studio. They're setting up the rings. They got their own commentators. They're bringing their wrestlers. It's all good, man. And they're happy with the whole agreement. And it's, basically getting wrestling for free and basically free programming. Well, FCC regulations kind of loosened up a little bit because fucking Reagan fucked everything up. Then you had Vince McMahon come out of these TV stations and be like, hey, instead of, putting wrestling on for free, I'll pay you to put wrestling on your television product. And that's where you see syndication explode in the 80s because of the deregulation of the requirement of having local television and locally produced shows, because they need less of those hours, but they still need to replace those hours with something. So that's why syndication, paid programming, all of those things came into popularization. And Vince was just, it was like paid programming. He was paying to be on there. And then also, too, he was coming into Midwestern markets, which were dominated by AWA, and basically saying, hey, a local television station in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, you used to broadcast AWA. Well, guess what? I got WWF. You were doing it for free. I'm going to pay you to put it on. And remember how good those ratings were? I got those same people. I got Mean Gene Okerlund. He was the TV announcer on AWA when you got that rating. And I got Hulk Hogan, the top star, when you had your biggest rating with AWA. So, and I'm going to pay you to put it on there. So TV stations would obviously kick off local wrestling territories, and that's how some of them lost their television stations. And definitely places like AWA, it really suffered. I'm sure Kansas City was kind of that situation. Crockett had a strong hold on all the TV stations because they had longstanding relationships. Memphis obviously had the longstanding relationship with Channel 5. But as far as like West Coast stuff and Portland and everywhere else, if you're a local station and somebody's going to pay you for something you were giving away for free, and there's no regulations on you having to produce it yourself, then yeah, it's a no-brainer.